right. People are joining. Oh my God, it's exciting. Oh, hi.
It worked.
It worked. And we have so many people joining. I'm so excited.
Hey.
Can you see like me? My head's chopped off. I have a big, larger head. Hi. Sorry I'm a little early. We're gonna wait till 10 o'clock till everybody joins. Thanks, Steph. Steph got us all set up. She's over here. You can say hi to everybody on the camera.
Hello.
Steph makes it all happen here at GL Design. All of the marketing, branding. I'm lucky to have such a good team. What's the weather in South Carolina?
It's beautiful. It was a little chilly this morning. I'd say when I dropped my kids off, it was like 57 degrees maybe, but it's
Right.
mid to upper 70s
Oh my
today. It's really
gosh. It's like not so great in Connecticut, but I'm not complaining because it's not snowing.
yeah. I do miss,
It's
but fall. I miss
fall.
New England. That's my
I know. Fall and spring are my favorite. Are my favorite
yeah
seasons for sure.
yeah.
So we've got 1 minute till we kick off. Thank you so much for doing
Oh my
this. I'm so excited.
dude.
I actually brought your piece with me. I'm so excited about it.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
We got a lot of good questions that came in yesterday. Oh, Willow destroyed me. I've got two dogs. I don't know if you can see them. And so I'll make sure to go try to answer as many as we can. I think that I'm trying to keep this to like a small, probably like 20 minutes or so, just because I know everybody has a busy day. So, all right, let's just start. So, all right, Jen, thank you for joining us. We're excited. I wish I had some pieces behind me of yours, but I'm obsessed with everything that you do. And it made so much sense for us to do this live. It is way overdue. As you know, at GL Design, we work with several local artists, and like when you lived here, this is kind of how we met. So I wanted to like take the audience back to sort of when I met you and what you were doing, and then sort of how you got started. And then we'll sort of move in a little bit into sort of your move and like what's inspiring you there in a new place, almost new chapter, new life. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about like you and how you got started in painting and what inspires you.
Sure. So for as long as I can remember, art was always my outlet. That was my hobby when I was younger and just carried out through my life. In high school, I took a lot of art classes. In college, I took a lot of art classes. But I always dreamt of someday being an artist, but never really thought that could be a possibility. I didn't know anyone who was an artist. At that point, there weren't really a lot of like local artists just around.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to grad school for art therapy. My undergrad was in psychology, and it kind of melded my two interests, and that led to a pretty long career in the nonprofit sector. But I think probably I was trying to remember, it was after my youngest son was born, he's 10 now. So right after he was born, I really wanted to, probably because I was dealing with two kids, one of them being an infant, was like something.
Yeah.
So I started painting, and just really like a little, very small side hustle of like, I'm going to start putting my work out there and see what happens. And that's when I was living in Connecticut at the time, and started to cultivate just a small following through local people, friends, that then word spread a little bit. And then at, some really talented designers, you in particular, who really helped to showcase my work and just get my name out there. So yeah, I was trying to think back to you and I meeting and projects that we did way back in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
I mean, we had a brick and mortar studio for a while, and I think I'd reached out to Jen and said, and are you still doing like wallpaper as well and all of the.
All on Spoonflower. I'm not designing it anymore, but I do still sell it. Yeah.
So there's so many things that you do that I feel like people don't even know. They're like, "Oh, Jen, the artist." Well, the artist, it's like the designer, right? Like there's so many different facets to what you do. So tell me a little bit as you do wallpaper, obviously original art on
Yes.
canvas. Tell me more.
So the original art and canvas is really the foundation of what I do.
Yeah.
But one, I get easily, I don't know if bored's the right word, but I just like to change things up and have a lot of variety. So that's one
You
thing.
like
And
to
then I like
diversify.
diversify.
Right.
And then also that art is not always accessible to everyone. I hope that my art is accessible, but not everyone can buy a piece of art and put it in their home. So a way that I try to still be able to kind of infuse some of my creativity into people's lives is to do, I mean, way back in the beginning, I think the first was like painting on denim jackets.
Yes, I get every time I wear my jacket with the East Coast jacket. So for everybody who's watching, there's two pieces that always get asked about is my denim jacket and then the East Coast original
Yep.
piece of art and canvas that you've
Yep.
done. And literally every time, and even though I'm tagging you on the picture, everyone's like, who is this art from? And so I try to, as much as I can put it out there. If someone were to reach out to you and say, I would love to commission this piece from you, is that something you still do? So you working on commission still?
Yep, I still do commissions, and I can walk them through that whole process. It's pretty easy. I go through different sizes that are available with pricing so that people can kind of see what might
Yeah.
work best with. Also, we talk about the size of the space that they're looking to have it, what shape would be best, things like that. So I often get pictures of their space if they're not local. It's yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So between the commissions, the wallpaper, the original paintings, obviously, and then, I mean, let's not forget your surfboard
Yeah.
phase, which I don't know if it was a phase because I really hope not, because I really hope you do them forever. But I own a few surfboards. See, here's the problem. So I see something you do and I'm so excited about it. And I'm like, oh, I have this perfect client for it. And then it's really hard for me to give it away. So then I ask you to do another one, obviously, for one for my family and then one for our clients. And I mean, I feel like you do it
Yeah.
all. You really do.
I will pretty much paint on almost anything. And I no, I don't think the surfboard era is over. It's yep, no, absolutely. During the move, it took a pause, and
Yeah.
it will be coming back. They are pretty labor intensive, so when I do them, one takes a while to do, and I need the right space and the right materials and everything like that. But it's absolutely not done.
We
It
got
will
a
be.
thumbs up on a surfboard. When you mentioned surfboards are not and is not over, we got a thumbs up. So I feel like that could be really, I mean, a lot of people that follow us, my community, and here on Instagram are very much into sort of this coastal aesthetic. And we mesh so well when it comes to that. It's like what I'm thinking before I even say it. So, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So let's dive into a little bit about what inspired you. You moved to South Carolina, and then I launched this paint line. You like left me, and then I launched this paint line, which I'm super excited about with Rings End, and who's such a wonderful partner. We deep dived a lot on my end into sort of all the naming of the colors and the palette. I think we started with like 40 colors and then we sort of called it down to 14 colors. And all of a sudden, like I said before, you were sort of doing this and we were thinking about it and you all of a sudden started launching this new collection based on the A La Plage paint line. So tell me what inspired you to use those colors. Was it South Carolina like that sort of inspired you? Was it, sort of what we're working on here? And a little bit about also the textures that you use in your art. I don't know if everybody can see this, but and I'm going to speak out of term here, but it almost looks like canvas that you've laid over this original piece. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that application as
Sure.
well.
So if I forget something, tell me after I start talking. So to start is, yes, so I moved to South Carolina, and I didn't paint for a little while. I was getting my kids settled. I was getting settled. Our house was getting settled, everything like that. And then I was ready to paint, and there's endless inspiration here. Like you, I am totally inspired by by the coast. My art is really based on coastal inspiration and trying to, my hope is that when someone has a piece of mine in their house, it kind of transports them to that space. That's
Yes.
what hope comes from that. And there's endless inspiration and beauty here. But I really couldn't get those creative wheels turning. And as an artist, one of the really hard things is that part in your brain, you can't always just switch it on. It's like a writer who might have that roadblock and just can't write. That happens to me with art all the time. I try to sit down and just doodle or just paint whatever, but it just sometimes I'm stuck. You put out your paint line, and just like those wheels started turning a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh, these colors are so perfect. The coastal palette was just like, I knew that I wanted to do something with it. I wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Rings End, and they were wonderful. They shipped me, I ordered samples of every single color in the collection. They shipped them to me.
Wow.
And I still have my first tester page that I did with all your colors, pulled out each one and just to see what each one looked like next to each other and things like that. I still had no idea what I was going to do, but I was like, I know that I want to use this. And it just evolved, and suddenly, it just became clear what I wanted to do, and I just started painting. I only used the paints from your collection. There's no other colors or any
Amazing.
other. Um,
Out of all the colors, which one did you gravitate towards the most?
that is such a hard question, because I was this morning thinking what are my favorite ones, and it honestly changes from day to day. I think when I look around at the pieces, Afterglow is one of them that really carried through, which is interesting because that color, I don't think I've used that type of color much in my work before. And all of a sudden I was couldn't get enough of it in all of
Yeah.
these. Yeah, loved it.
So
And
Afterglow, for everyone watching, Afterglow is sort of the premise behind that, obviously, is when the sun sets, there's the afterglow in the sky, and that's kind of what we base the name off of. And it was a last minute discovery. And, we were like, oh, we're not going to launch pink, essentially, or dusty pink in a palette. And, it was one of those, we mixed all these different paints together, and Afterglow appeared. And we were like, how did we even get this? And we had to go back and formulate. And it was one of those colors where we agree with you. It wasn't really intended to be part of a collection. And it's one of our most highest selling colors because it is a dusty rose. I think, right now there's a lot of gravitation towards that sort of palette, that hue. And it works for all different sort of applications. So whether it be in a nursery, whether it be in a living room ceiling to sort of warm up the space. And so when we saw you use it, and I love that you used it in this one, you used it actually on the surfboards. I mean, it's perfect. The way that you envision this color is exactly the way that we intended it. And it looks so great.
yeah,
It looks so great.
I couldn't get enough of it. Yeah.
I know. And low tide, so you're sitting in front of a bunch of pieces as well, right? We want to see your art. So tell us a little bit about these shapes and what inspired you to be I was going to say a little bit more abstract. When I first met you, you were working a lot with letters and, words and things like that. And so this is really interesting. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to do that.
Yeah, so I always think at the basis of my work is using colors, lines, and textures to kind of get that feel across. And again, really based on the coast, like that coastal feeling. So one, for texture, and to speak to what you were talking about earlier with the raw canvas pieces that are affixed on top of the paintings, for texture, you know, I always want to evoke that kind of rugged feeling that you get from the coast. Usually the way that I've done that in the past has been through layering paint, using a lot of layers, scraping paint, using a palette knife. That's kind of been my technique all along. And this time around, I don't know what kind of popped in my head, other than also I really like painting on fabric. I've painted on a lot of canvas totes, things like that. So I thought I want to incorporate some kind of rugged collage to this. So I ordered just a roll of raw canvas and just started tearing and fraying and things like that. And before I even started painting, I just affixed them to the canvases, and without really any rhyme or reason of like what shape, where, things like that. But it helped to kind of guide then the direction I was going to go in. It's a little hard to tell. I'll show you on this one. There's kind of big canvas piece here on that big island.
Yes.
And that was like the big one on this piece. And that had me then lead into just that being a piece with a bunch of little islands on it. And
Love it.
really reminded me of the coast of Maine, where I grew up, where there's just a ton of islands that you can kind of boat hop from place to place. And I think you'll see in these pieces kind of touches of all different coastlines. The one behind me here is actually opposite, really like a West Coast coastline of those kind of like mountainous cliffs that go down to the water. And then you have your seashells here, but a big canvas piece here. So I really just kind of took from the foundation of the texture, the colors, the lines, but used it in a different way than I really have in the past. So
How do you feel like ever since you've been using this like mixed media and using these like strips of canvas, et cetera, how do you feel like your audience has evolved or is reacting to sort of your evolution as an artist?
yeah, I think really well. I think that it adds this kind of extra special touch to it that makes it a little more unique and special, and just I don't know. I think people are responding well to it, and I think it's something that I don't know what will be in the store in the future, but I loved using it and love the outcome of it. So
Yeah. So this sort of is a great transition into how do people sort of reach out to you? How do they order your art? Where they can see the depth and the diversification essentially of your work? Is it your website mostly? And are you thinking of ever having your own place in South Carolina, meaning like you're like a storefront or a gallery, or is your art like in person, somebody can come see it in any of the galleries?
so that would be the dream.
Yeah, it's so important to dream for all of those small business owners out there, and we're thinking of it. Don't you think the most important thing is to have a goal, is
Yep,
to have a
yep,
dream? Because it just that every day you wake up with that like excitement about, okay, like in 2 years, I want it to be shown at this and this gallery or this store or be picked
yep.
up by this brand or, or whatever, your dream is, whatever. And it's just so important, right?
I can honestly say, like I said earlier, I never thought, when I was growing up, that like the reality of being an artist would be possible. But in my head, I always envisioned, and I can still like picture, always envisioned me having this little like studio shack on the stand and like walking around barefoot and painting, which I mean, that probably isn't going to happen, but that stuck in my head and really just drove me to keep going. And yeah, it's, for a long time, I did this on the side while I was
Yeah.
working. It
Yeah.
is a,
Yeah. Same. I started that
yeah,
way too.
it's
Same.
a lot of work, but it's when it's your passion, it's it feeds you so much. So yes, it's draining, but it also, I think, feeds you so much. And yeah, I can't say that enough, that like, if there's something in your mind that you've thought, been dreaming of, that
Yeah.
yeah, it can be a reality. And even if it takes a really long time, still chugging along. Like it's not always easy. Yes. So, I mean, the ultimate dream would be to have my own like brick and mortar studio location here that people could come into. I had that for a little while I was in Connecticut, and that was amazing. I loved being able to welcome people in to really see all the work in person. Right now, I'm working out of, I turned a room in my house into my studio.
Yep.
So I'm working out of that. But certainly anyone who's local here in Charleston, I'm always happy to invite them in to come and see the work in person. But
That,
yes, on the website, you can see my work. There's also a lot of examples of past work. And then really through my Instagram, that's where I think you get the biggest
yeah.
of the breadth of my work and different things that I've
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And I really try to keep that up in terms of showing what I'm doing now, and also some behind the scenes of the actual process of making the art, and showing it in different spaces, because I think sometimes it's hard to envision, when you just see a piece of art, what will that look like hung on a wall with furniture and things like that. So trying to really help people see what that might look like in their space.
We have a question from the audience. Do you ship to Canada?
Absolutely can ship to Canada. Yes, it's a little more challenging, but it's something that I can, yes, we can speak one-on-one on. And yes, I have done
We
that.
actually have a few people from France on
Oh,
as well. So, wow. This is so fun. And Caitlin from Picket Fence just joined. I know you guys know each other.
yes.
So, okay, well, I feel like, wow, first of all, thank you. You are so talented. I think that for everyone who was not familiar with you, obviously we're going to save this recording on my feed. It'll go in yours as well. But I think the big takeaway here is just how much art you have out there and on these different mediums. So everything from, you even said like merchandise. So, from totes to denim jackets to surfboards, your original art, which is gorgeous. And the fact that you really have this outreach to everybody around across the country and now
Yep.
world. I think that's huge. I know. And so, what's next, Jen?
So holidays are coming up, and that is
Yes.
when I tend to try to put out there are more accessible. So pieces like this size, minis, I like to do a bunch of those for the holidays because they can be a really great gift for people. And
Minis are great because minis you can put on shelves. You
yep,
can even you can hang them as well, but it is literally we can't get enough of the minis. A lot of our clients ask for them.
yeah, they're a
Sorry.
great
Okay, continue.
pop.
I keep interrupting you.
No, that's okay. They're a great accessory to pop in anywhere. You're totally right. And then there probably will be, I'm still working out exactly what it's going to be, but there probably will be things like the totes, those kinds of accessories that people can buy for themselves or as gifts. So holiday time is mostly that. So I'm not going to be starting another like big collection with
Yeah.
larger right now. I'm going to focus on those things. And then post holidays, I think we'll be, back to starting on a new collection to put out there.
Amazing. So I don't see any more questions right now, but I'm sure that we'll get a lot of follow-up questions from the audience. But thank you so much. We actually stayed within the time that I was hoping, and we had a lot of viewers. And really, the point of this was to share you and your talents and the love that we have for you, and just keep doing you, girl. Like you're crushing it. You really are.
I will. And I can't, I mean, I can't thank you enough, Gail. You've been honestly like one of my biggest cheerleaders since day one.
Yeah.
And and I know you're such a great supporter of everyone. And I am so grateful to be included in that bucket because, you've really helped me along the way. And not only that, but just your work inspires me so much. So in terms of you being an inspiration, a friend, a cheerleader, all that, I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, girl. We love you. And thank you to everybody that joined. We appreciate it. Bye from me and
Thanks,
Jen.
everyone.
Bye.